Welcome to End Times Matrix News. My name is Tim Clark, and we have Chris with us today. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
And we have a very interesting topic, the Nazi swastika 666, the heart of Lucifer, New Age World Order. So we're going to get into some of this interesting Nazi-related topic with the swastika today, but we're going to go back to the origins of the swastika. Not going to get really in-depth on this show, but it connects with our lives today. So we wanted to just keep tying things together. Where should we start with the swastika? Where should we start with the origins?
Well, we can start with the oldest alphabet of the Phoenicians that are the star constellations for each letter. And they are also the pathways on the Kabbalah tree. The Phoenician alphabet contains 22 letters. It was the writing of Phoenician, a northern Semitic language used by the civilization of Phoenicia. So the Phoenician alphabet derived from the Egyptian hieroglyphs, and it became the most widely used writing systems spread by the Phoenician merchants across the Mediterranean world, where it evolved and was assimilated by many other cultures. The Paleo-Hebrew alphabet was directly derived from the Phoenician alphabet.
So we go way back. We're going back to the Phoenicians. And where did the Phoenicians get the original alphabet?
Egyptian hieroglyphs.
So we're going back to Egypt. We go to Egypt a lot in our shows, don't we?
Yeah. The Phoenician alphabet derived from the Egyptian hieroglyphs of their star maps, because the Phoenician alphabet is actually a star map alphabet. Like the first letter of the alphabet would be Taurus, and it would be the Aleph symbol. The second letter would be Beth, would be Orion, and Gimel was Gemini.
You know, that makes a lot of sense to me because I was just recently studying Job, the oldest book in the Bible, and predating the Abrahamic covenant, they knew God's laws and things. Well, how did they know all these things? And it was this relation all the way back to Adam, this oral tradition, which of course would also mean the Mazzaroth, which was the constellations. And here we got tying the Phoenicians back to the hieroglyphic and then tying that back to the cosmology or the constellations. It's really fascinating to me that all language stems from a star map and it gets disseminated through the peoples of the world. And I think we had commented in either a previous show or discussing this, talking about the Tower of Babel and the dissemination of language, how it all broke down and was disseminated around the world. This is really interesting, going all the way back to the Mazzaroth and the star map.
The languages from the parent Phoenician alphabet were spread throughout different languages. And from this Phoenician star alphabet came Proto-Germanic rune alphabets, the oldest being Elder Futhark. The letter O is the Odal rune, also representing Taurus, just like the ox, the bull's head in older writings, and the eagle in Egypt because Zeus or Jupiter represents the eagle and the ox. The name of the Phoenician letter O meant eye, or AN like in Hebrew. Its shape is a human eye inspired by the Egyptian hieroglyphs. The symbol means the Aleph and the Taw, the Alpha and the Omega, which is the false Christ, and the mark of the beast. It's the swastika in a different shape. And the Nazis used this symbol on a flag during World War II.
I became interested in the Odal rune. That's why we're mentioning it through doing research on that symbol. And we got into some extensive investigation and found out that it was related to the swastika. It was just another version of the swastika. And I noticed that in pop culture, because I'm trying to, of course, always connect current pop culture with conditioning. And this Odal rune keeps showing up in different shows. This rune, I began noticing it on certain actresses that were in certain shows. The first show I noticed that it was Mortal Instruments, City of Bones, a 2013 release, which basically discusses what are known as kind of like a group of fallen Nephilim hybrid children who fight demons, basically. That's what it is. So they're hybrids. And I noticed they had these angelic, they call them angelic runes, and they say this Odal rune is an angelic power rune, as they describe in their fan pages. But I was going, this is a very strange symbol, and they're putting it right on the chest, right across. And why on the chest? Why on the heart? Why do they put this there? And so when we found out it was the swastika, I looked at the other shows that I had noticed it in. Just recently, in the last couple of weeks, I noticed that the Odal rune was also in the Sleepy Hollow show. And the main character they call the lieutenant in the Sleepy Hollow show was basically worshiping this rune. This is the rune that made her feel comfortable and safe and got her back from her little purgatory or whatever. And so it's a major part of that show now. So I've seen 2 shows that it's on. Then I found the spin-off Shadowhunters show of 2016 where the girls all have these kind of runes on their chest. The main themes I see going through when I see these themes is it matched up with the Lebensborn program. And what I want to explain is these shows that are putting this forward are putting forward the Lebensborn philosophy. The Lebensborn actually means fount of life. It was a Nazi eugenics program of what you would call taking your best stock of females and best stock of males, Aryan, blue-eyed, blonde-haired, and having children from them so that you have the healthiest stock. And this all goes back to our eugenics programs in America, back to even Lynchburg, Virginia, which was well known as a eugenics center before it became Liberty University and Jerry Falwell and all that. And you can do research on that. But the point of this was that this philosophy is here in our culture, the Nazi philosophy of the Lebensborn. It's being promoted with these Nephilim. Lebensborn would divide the group of people into 3 categories, and that would be desirable, acceptable, disposable. The Germanization program of the Lebensborn in 1939, they began kidnapping children from foreign countries, mainly Yugoslavia and Poland, and they were putting them into this Lebensborn program. What they did was the Nazis would take children from their parents in full view of their parents. The kidnapped children were administered several tests and then divided into these categories. And the children classified as unwanted were taken to concentration camps to work or to be killed. So you're seeing the same philosophy in these shows, these Shadowhunter shows. You have humans, just like Harry Potter had the magical people, that would be your Nephilim people. And the Muggles would be your unwanted, dumb humans, disposable. They're doing the same thing with these supernatural shows, with these Nephilim characters and the Muggle type characters, and then hybrid kind of things. And what did we find with the historical pictures, Chris, with the girls that we found in the past?
The Lebensborn children had the swastika on their chest, right where their heart is on their uniforms. The older girls were dressed in very short dresses or shirts with the swastika without bras, just like the TV and movie characters wore the rune on their chest over their hearts. It's the same symbol of the swastika that the Lebensborn children wore on their chest over their hearts. This reminds me of Johnny Gosch, who was kidnapped in 1982. His mother was able to get leaked photos of him. He was branded like cattle with the Odal rune symbol, which was the last letter of the runic alphabet. It was Fa for cattle.
So you're saying that Odal rune is a cattle symbol?
Yes. It's all, it is the swastika, but it's also the cattle symbol, and we do see the old Egyptian artifacts with them all wearing bull's tails. And then Tammuz was a bull, Zeus was a bull and an eagle.
Well, it's like branding livestock. So these girls are branded as part of, they meet the grade. They're acceptable. They get the swastika.
Yeah, we wonder what is the deeper meaning of the swastika on the chest. And the mythical story is that Zeus sewed his son's heart in his leg. When the second generation Titans tried to rip his son Dionysus to pieces, all that was left was his heart. Zeus sewed it in his leg as Taurus the bull, and it became Ursa Major, where the 4 souls of Horus as Osiris are representing earth, wind, fire, and air in the 4 directions. So the center of the swastika is the pole star where Ursa Major spins around, representing the equinoxes and the solstices. It also represents as above, so below, with the triangle up and the triangle down, like the pyramid symbol coming together as the star, also meaning male and female coming together as one, as the Antichrist. As Zeus's son is male and female, he is Tammuz, the son of the sun and the moon. Dionysus is the same as Tammuz, as well as many other deities, as Hermes and Aphrodite as hermaphrodite, male and female. That is why the Baphomet is a male and female, with you see the caduceus as the phallus and the breast on the Baphomet with the horns. That's why it says in the book of Acts 7:43, yeah, ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch and the star of your god Remphan, which means Saturn, figures which ye made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon. So Acts 7:43 is also coded because Shiva means seven. The four souls of Horus is part of the seven stars of Ursa Major that makes the swastika. This is all part of DNA. It's a DNA code. This is the birthing of the new race that Lady Gaga was talking about. And this is why her name is coded with DNA, with the four souls of Horus, that we will talk about in part 2 of this show. But this is a DNA code of the Ogdode. This has to do with the birthing of the new race, in which Lady Gaga sings about in her song, and you see the egg that she comes out of in her video, just like the Ogdode.
It's very interesting just watching the transformation of America into this kind of a Nazi communist police state. That was also another one of these shows or a predictive program by Amazon. They came out with this show called The Man in the High Castle, which also said, what would America look like if Nazi Germany had won? So it's another one of these conditioning kind of things with the swastika. The main thing I noticed that came from Madame Blavatsky and The Secret Doctrine that Hitler read, of course, says that he misappropriated the symbol and used it for evil when it was never an evil symbol. And that's why Chris and I mentioned that some people associate it with good, some associate it with bad. But the point that you're seeing here, what I'm seeing right now with the Donald Trump situation and our elected officials, this race-baiting media that is stirring up the nations. You know, how the Bible talks about races will rise up and be against each other. And it's really these folks here, these pureblood folks here, that use these Lebensborn type of view of life that have this Nazi philosophy of the pureblood and the unwanted. They use the terms that you've heard in the past, culling the herd, whereas in Iron Man 2, the movie, they said, we're going to thin out the herd. They look at people like cattle. God never looks at people like cattle. This is the angelic, fallen angelic realm talking through humans, demon-possessed, that look at humans as a waste of space, as just a herd. Man was never created to be looked at as cattle. This is the angels that were displaced, that lost their first estate. This is what we read in the Genesis 6 thing. This is what Adam was given authority over the earth. Of course, he lost it back to Lucifer, but the point is the angels hate God's creation, the image bearers, which is us. When you hear this stuff, when you hear people talking about culling their herd and cattle, thinning their herd, branding these poor actresses, they're getting these angelic symbols, but they're actually being branded with swastikas as acceptable breeders for the new future Antichrist Reich. It's really disturbing.
Yeah.
And that's what we're progressing to. The Nazi philosophy that is held by the ruling class, including the Vatican, through the Freemasons and the Nazi orders that are all around the globe, are going to fulfill their CERN ritual. And we will see what a true beast, which Hitler wanted to be and which Obama wanted to be. We'll see what the true beast comes through that portal or related to that portal in some way be revealed. But then you're going to have your real dictator, your real high Hitler, and it's going to be a mess.
Speaking of CERN, I have a short clip that I want to play with Anthony Patch that we pre-recorded on February the 12th regarding this star system and CERN with the pole star and the Nazi bell. You said that you think when they're ready to hit the button that the Polaris star would have to be at a certain point?
Well, that goes back to a discussion that you and I had a long time ago about Polaris, the North Star, and you had asked me, does the Large Hadron Collider have to be in alignment with the North Star? And I hadn't really thought of that because that's more an area of your research than it is of mine, but it made a lot of sense to me. And as you began to describe how relating the movement around the North Star of the Little Dipper, and that it mimics, when you look at it graphically, that movement, that revolving around like a clock of the Dipper, that it looked like the Nazi swastika.
Yeah.
And that really opened my eyes because the connection is to the Nazi research, to the Nazi bell, to the Glock, the Nazi bell project. And I won't go into a long tangent on that, but the LHC is the outgrowth of the project known as the bell from World War II and the Nazis' use of the occult and the rituals and getting information from the other side for their own military purposes. And that's what CERN is all about. It is an advancement. It's an outgrowth of that early Nazi research. So looking at a probable Nazi connection to the swastika and the North Star, Polaris, makes a lot of sense that there would be a reason for them to worship and use the swastika in that fashion and connect it to the Large Hadron Collider, because we know that they are totally into the occult and astrology. So there has to be an alignment on our calendar, in our time frame. There has to be an alignment with the North Star that is significant to what they want to do with the machine as to when they want to open that portal.
Okay, so that was pre-recorded on February 12th, and I have the full clip. I also have a Saturn Cube recording with Anthony that we will be posting very soon, so you can hear that whole clip. The first clip will be about the pole star connected to CERN. We know the pole star is the star that's in the center of the swastika. Stay tuned for those shows coming out. They're going to be very interesting. And also, if you want to know the full code of the 666 that's tied to these old runes, then you can get our book that's coming out called CERN Unos's Box. And we will be posting that on endtimesmatrixnews.com when that's available. And we will also post it on End Times Matrix News Facebook.
And in addition to those shows, we're going to be doing a special show on beast technology that will radically alter your view of how close we are to having the technology that's required to trap all of humanity within the web of technology. So that'll be an upcoming show also.
Right. That is going to be very interesting and eye-opening with virtual technology tied with the eye scanners, tied to this new quantum technology that I believe will come after destruction for the new peace.
So all this coming up to you in a short period of time, God willing. So thank you for listening to our show today. We appreciate everybody who leaves comments. We try to answer comments. Really enjoy getting the feedback and also talking with everybody out there. And we're just having a good time fellowshipping with our fellow viewers. Appreciate Chris with all her great animation and visuals. These are also the things that will be appearing in the Cernunos box book. Lots of visuals, so you can see that. So thank you very much for today, Chris.
Thank you, and I have one verse before we go. In Romans 10:9, it says, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is believing in your heart that you are made right with God and confessing with your mouth. With that verse, just know that this is the true love and heart of God, not the swastika, not these mythical stories of the heart of Dionysus the hermaphrodite. This is Jesus Christ, and he is God. And he came to redeem us through his DNA, through his perfect blood, not these people that are trying to run the world thinking that they own this world through their bloodline of Cain, of their big bang that they call from 2600 BC, from the Ogdode that they want to raise again, because the Ogdode represents the swastika. It represents this pole star. And the 7 stars of the Pleiades, they transmit their spiritual energy of 7 rays from Horus, the resurrected Osiris, then to the 7 stars of the Great Bear Ursa Major, and then to Sirius, then to the womb of the belt of Orion, and then to the earth. So this is how they used to do it in the ancient times. It's the same thing that's going to happen with CERN. And we don't know the day or the hour, but we're watching these times unfold.
Amen. I absolutely looking forward to the return of Christ, and very appreciative for everyone. Thank you, and you have a great week.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.